Well, my clock says 11, so let's go ahead and jump in. It was nice to see many of your faces at the users conference. It's way more fun in person, I'm just going to say. But I don't know if you saw, Steve has already
None yesterday, but when I came in, I had 4
Steve
boxes
has
here
already
from Friday.
posted the recordings and the slide decks from that users conference. So if you were not able to attend and you're interested in finding out what went on, it's your big chance to jump in there. And I came back to a day of training immediately. So I'm just barely catching up with the emails that I had. If I haven't got back to you, I'm working on it. Just saying, I'm working on it. So that being said, let's go ahead and hop in. I just wanted to remind, a situation came up during the month of a library that I think they just misunderstood the process of what you do when you have a damaged item that was, so your patron has damaged somebody else's item. So this is definitely, because we deal with lots of different libraries, this is a thing where communication needs to go back and forth between both libraries. So there is a circulation contact for each library, or there's nothing wrong with just contacting the library either way. But borrowing library, so the one who has the actual damaged item thing in their hand should call or email that owning library to request that they mark the item damaged. The borrowing library cannot mark the owning library's material damaged. And so because they didn't understand the process, they ended up putting a grocery bill on for that item. And so I think we've got all of that sorted out and got it all fixed back to where, they're not billed twice when it got marked damaged and those kinds of things. But I'm just encouraging you, don't put a grocery bill on for damaged fees. Go ahead, contact that library, email or phone call, and let them put the market damaged, which should then bill your patron. So did I explain it well enough? Okay. Any questions on that? Great.
I was going to say one thing.
Sorry, isn't that a setting? There's also a setting, because we did not have the ability to mark that damage to do the charge. So there could be libraries out there without that setting.
So you're saying you can't mark your own item damaged?
We can now, when like on that damaged on check-in, where you do the little drop down. Ours did not used to have that.
Oh.
Because it was a setting that came along later than after we migrated. So just in case, if you don't have that little drop down, you may need to change your setting.
Thanks, Terry. Great.
The other thing I was going to say is there are those forms. My library, my patron damaged their book and vice versa, those 2 forms, but those are just for us to keep record of the situation, not to send the form elsewhere. It's in case somebody comes across that form. I'm saying they're more for the library that's dealing with the situation. Correct?
They might still be on the circulation training resources page.
Yeah, they are still.
I think that was just something that Diane shared from what Scenic does, and I'm not exactly sure if Scenic still does exactly the same thing, but that was a form that they were using to give, and it would be just
it's just a way to keep track of, like, I emailed the person. For me, I still use them and I keep it in the book, and it just shows me, hey, I talked to Scenic Regional on April 1st or whatever, it's just, I just like that little form, but they're not a required form. I guess that's what I was trying to say.
Right. Any other questions? All right, so last month we began working on, it was brought to our attention, especially with all the snow days that we had and just libraries being closed more days than anticipated, that when we were working on the transit list, perhaps that amount of time was, that 1 month back up was too short of time. So the committee went to work on it, and let me see if I can share here what I'm looking for. Yeah, here we go. Okay, can everybody see this now? So this little section, again, this is on that circulation training resource page, the instructions for dealing with the transit list. And so this was the section right here that we felt like needed to be modified. And so, unfortunately, we're going to have to reproduce this whole document again. So before I go to work on doing that, I wanted to just kind of pass on what we have thought so far. And then the committee, we need to discuss a couple of other changes, and everybody else is willing to, I'm willing to chime in if you have a good idea. So for this section, the suggested changed wording would be: the transit list can be set to search for items in transit to your library or branch, and in transit from your library/branch. It is recommended that your start date is the date of your migration, and the end date is 4 weeks before the date the report is run. The end date may vary based on factors such as weather, holidays, number of courier days, etc. With the goal being, the month is still a good time frame, but there might be contingencies that might cause you to want to extend that time. So, committee or anybody else, do you want to chime in? Is everybody good with that wording?
Well, I tested it since I was last on the meeting, and that wording worked perfectly for me. So I thought it was really great. And in fact, it caused me to completely clean my transit list up. I'm actually current today.
There you go.
So it was well worth it for me.
All right, any other comments? Okay, not hearing anything, I'm going to make that new paragraph read like what I just read to you. So then, since we're going to be doing this, working on this document anyway, there were questions about this section right here. So take a second to kind of read through it. Okay, so here is a suggested modification, and I just want to see what y'all think. So here we go. Verify that your branch is showing in the library field, or choose it from the drop-down menu. That part wasn't even addressed before, so adding that in. By default, the list will be sorted by the date the transit began. To facilitate searching your library for the items, sort the search results by clicking your preferred column header. And then there's a couple like shelving location, call number, whatever you want to sort with. Print by choosing print full grid from the column picker.
So what's the difference? Is the order that you did everything really?
Well, I think the thought was just making sure that we have that this really is our branch that we're wanting to do. Talking about setting, we talked about setting these things before.
Oh, I
Reminding you
see.
that when this list prints, it's going to print from oldest to newest, and that then you can sort these columns when you actually go out to look for your items that you're hoping. I mean, I always hope that I find them, but don't hope that I find them, because then that means somebody put them onto my shelf without really
Yeah,
doing
yeah, for
their
sure.
due diligence. But so do you find that helpful to add that extra information in there? Or do you feel like it's okay as it is? Leanne, Heather?
It can't hurt to put the extra information in there. It doesn't sound like anyone was struggling with running the report the way that they would like, but you already have some nice wording that you just read out to us. So I think it can't hurt to add additional details.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I agree. I think it sounds fine. And I was going to throw this out there just so people are aware. If you want to play around with how you want to organize how it's printed, you can always do the download CSV. You can sort and filter your columns really easily and then print from there. And I even have done the print, the full grid, but then print to a PDF, and then you can print it that way, and it prints a little neater sometimes.
Okay. This section here, I think we're going to definitely need to do possibly some work on it on the backside. So within the next week, I'm going to be emailing the committee. What the confusing thing that I think on this is, before it tells you to go ahead and print it. And from that list that you've printed, you will be able to mark items missing. But if you cancel the transit the way this shows you to cancel the transit, it disappears from the list. So if you don't already have that printed, you will not be able to go back and mark the item missing. Does that make sense? So I think I understand what this is trying to tell us to do, but to me it seems you could mess yourself up by canceling the transit first and then trying to mark it missing second, unless you are absolutely sure that you have those barcodes that you need. So this week, look for something for me so we can nail down this little section. And then after we get that done in the committee, we'll just go ahead and try and reproduce this document to post. Unless you guys have any other things that you saw on it. Those were the things that were given to me as issues. So are we?
Does it say to only check for your own items?
Yeah, it does.
And so
Do
that
not
might,
cancel. Yeah.
we
I have-
found other libraries items on our shelf, so that might.
So, I mean, at the very, you can't mark anybody else's items. You can't cancel their transit or mark them missing. But you certainly, in my opinion, should look for them. Again,
Yeah.
it's one of those things where you don't really want to find it, but
Well, maybe that needs to be said.
right.
I
those are-
agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that
And-
needs to be clarified, because I think not everyone may be running both the to and the from and checking, because I know I have a lot of items that belong to other libraries, and we have so many, I've not gotten around to contacting them yet. But if they were checking their own, they should see that and be able to mark it missing without me having to contact them myself.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and it's never inappropriate if you have items that appear to be sitting on somebody's shelf somewhere. It's never wrong to contact them and say, would you please look for this?
Right,
So
right.
that's
Yeah.
the other thing in there.
And I
Okay,
think maybe just kind of having kind of a guideline maybe on how to streamline that process and kind of make that whole process clearer as to when you need to go ahead and try to contact the library and to make sure everyone's clear that they do need to try to be looking for everyone's items that are on their to and from list.
Checking their own shelves even. I mean, that's where we start every time, but that's
Right.
obvious to us. We've all been doing it for
This
a
is
minute.
Louise.
So,
hi
Hey,
Louise,
Brandy.
did you have a comment? Okay, so if you're on the committee, double check everything in the whole document. The 2 sections that we talked about, I will send you the exact wording so that you can see that. And then note anything that needs to be changed throughout the rest of it. Because if we're going to do it, you might as well just do it all at one time. Okay. so-
And I gotta.
Yeah.
You mentioned that we can't cancel the transit. I think that you can, but I
Well, you
could be
can.
wrong. But I think also it's courtesy to contact the owning library either way to check their shelf. That's just Polk County's library process is that we check our shelves, then we contact their them, and then if they don't have it, then I go from there of marking it missing or so on.
I mean, I'm just not, I don't think it's a good idea for us to mark anybody else's items.
Oh, yes, I agree
Our
with that.
own- Yes, our own, do what you need to do, but don't, it's great to contact them and say, please look, but we're not gonna cancel their transit or mark their items missing.
Oh, I completely agree with that.
Okay,
But
okay.
I think that it maybe needs to be in that wording too of,
Okay.
I mean, your items compared to Missouri ever items, because this list is very vague, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah, well, I think these instructions, I don't know how long ago they were written. And I think we can do better. If we're gonna redo it, let's get it.
And I'm not for certain, but I think in that document, doesn't it say about marking your items missing when they're very, very long in transit, I think. And I have not. I have got some, I've had a library contact me a couple times and I still want to know that it's lost in transit. If I just mark it missing, it's like missing like any other way missing. I still want to know that it's missing because it's lost in transit. So I am leaving mine on there.
As you are well entitled to do.
Because I mean, it doesn't hurt anybody. I mean, yes, it might
Yes.
be in there for a little longer, but
Right,
an extra line or two. I think we have 2 that are very long missing, but it's just kind of a way to keep track of where things are supposed to be.
yes. Okay. Oh, I've lost my paper here. All right, moving on. Create duplicate holds library setting. We talked about this last month, where we would like Equinox to change or add a permission to all of the patron permission groups, whereby they can place duplicate holds on the same item. Think like a book club or something like that, where they're going to want multiple titles. So Equinox, I've been working with them. Equinox has activated this setting in the test server. They would like us to verify that it's working as expected before they make those changes in the production server. So I would like to ask you all to get into that test server and see if the new setting is working correctly for each patron profile that you use. I mean, not everybody uses every patron profile. So if you would check the ones that work that your patrons use, that would be helpful. So when you're doing this, you have to do it from the patron's side. We can already do multiple holds. So when you go into the catalog, you've got to go to that patron view, log in as a patron from the different categories and see if you can place multiple holds. So I have only had time to do one. I did it on my own account and it worked just fine. It came up with a little thing. How many do you want? It won't let you do more than what are on the bib record. It seems to work similarly to what ours would, only on the patron side. But when I asked Equinox to, you know, when can we set a date? They said, don't you want to maybe test this? So, yes, we are going to test. And if there are any unexpected things happen, or it doesn't work correctly on something, shoot me an email so that I can work then with Equinox. Tentatively, the go live date for this is April 7th. So that's going to give us, you know, a week or so to, well, you know, a little more than a week to test these things to make sure everything is fine. We just don't want to break something once we roll it out. So the instructions for checking that second setting that you need to make sure your library has set the way you want, that verification of maximum number of duplicate holds. I sent instructions along with your invitation. So that would be how you would get in there. And this is where you can decide how many items you would be willing for your patrons to place duplicate holds on. So you have complete control over whether your patrons do this. And honestly, it's good unless we inform our patrons. I mean, there's going to be a few that stumble on it. You know, they try and place more than one. There's going to be some that just figure it out on their own. But it's going to be a patron education for those people that you know are wanting to have duplicate holds.
Hey, Rhonda.
Yeah.
That's only for duplicate holds, not if we change it to 15, it's not 15 different things. It's only duplicate holds.
Right. It's like how many of the same
Okay.
off the same bib record could
Can
they
you get-
pull? So if there's 8 things on there and the patron wants 4, that would work. But
Okay.
it's all going to be off that one, whatever bib record you're on.
Yeah, I have a silly question.
Probably not. It's probably not silly.
And I just pulled up the test serve. How do you get on the test serve by the patron side?
Okay, so you're still in the patron. You're going to pull up something, do a regular search just like you normally would for a patron.
Okay.
Click into the item that you pull up where you could see all the holdings underneath of it. And then kind of toward above where those would be on the right-hand side, there's going to be a patron view button that you can click. When you
Okay.
hit patron view, that is going to be where it's going to make you log in as a patron. So you're going to have somebody's record.
The record. Okay.
Yeah. And you would put in their barcode and their PIN number and then test it. And then, so because none of this is real in the test server, I think that's why they want to. So did you
Right.
did you track where I was saying going?
Yes. Thank
Okay,
you.
Perfect. Okay. Default hold notices. A suggestion has been made that MEC no longer shows phone, phone as a default hold. So let me see here if I can maybe. No, I don't think I can share. Well, that's not what I want to share. Maybe if somebody on the committee could pull up, like you're going to register a patron and share it. Perfect. Now, if you'll go down to where, here, go on down to where we would do how we notify patrons. Here we go. Okay. So, by default, when this form comes up, it has phone and email clicked. My question is, what would people think if we removed phone as a default hold pickup option? It would still be there if you wanted to opt into phone, but it wouldn't be the default. So basically it would look like, Heather, if you could unclick phone and show what it would look like, then it would come up like this with the email already being the default thing. And then you could select either phone or SMS. So I'm looking for feedback on that.
Would this affect in any way the transit slips? Because we might want to have the phone number on like the arrived hold transit slip. Or, I mean, not
Unless-
transit, arrived hold slip.
Unless your transit slip is looking at the setting when it prints out the number, it shouldn't. If it just prints out the patron's information, it should not affect what prints on the transit slip. Because if your transit slip looks identical for every patron, when you print it out, it probably is not dependent on these settings.
Okay.
I would imagine it's a column. If you go into that column picker, I think that is what it's pulling it from.
So I
Sure.
will start, and that I suggested this idea, and I am in favor of it because we will make automated phone calls, but most patrons don't choose it. But when staff are making accounts, I think commonly they enter in the phone number and then look past the fact that phone has been selected. And those phone calls do cost us money, and most patrons don't prefer them. So then they call us after a couple times to tell us that they don't want to get the phone calls anymore and to please undo that. So we have seen a real uptick in patrons who have phones selected, but I think they're mostly accidents. So that is why I brought it up, just so that we could discuss and see what other libraries thought.
So your
So-
system automatically calls somebody if that's clicked?
We contract with a service, yes. So if that's selected, then our patrons will get an automated phone call. That's right.
So if email is default checked and there's no email, what happens?
You unclick email. Unclick email.
No, but I mean, what if that's set as default, is it already checked as default?
It's already checked as default.
Okay, and if they did not put an email up above,
You have to unclick that email.
yeah, so that's what I'm thinking. If staff don't unclick that, is it just gonna be lost and never get notification?
Well, they won't be notified because, when you unclick email, they won't get an email. And if they don't choose text and you don't do automated messages, there's no way that they're going to get notices anyway.
And that's why I was verifying that the phone would still be like on the print slip, because when you check the item in and it shows as the right hold, it should have the phone number to where you could, at that point, just go ahead and call.
So I just looked at our receipt templates, and the part of the coding in the receipt template that determines what notification prints on that hold slip is dependent on those checkboxes. It's an if statement. So if it's not checked in their account, it may not print on the receipt template. And I'm not saying there's not a way to change it, but that's what it is now. I'm not sure.
Okay.
My other concern is kind of along the same lines, is that, that having that phone checked is sort of a safety net for us. So if something goes wrong in the rest of the application process, that way, at least we're getting that contact
I'll be right
information to go back and check. I like having it checked because we do still have a pretty big population of people that are not doing email or texting because we have spotty coverage on, internet service and cell service here still.
Okay.
But obviously whatever the majority decides.
Can I ask, can this be customized? I have always thought this is a weird order to me. To me, the default phone should be down, like the first thing to me should always be default pickup location. Then your holds notices, you check phone, email, or SMS, and then to me, it should be both phone numbers under that after you've checked it to fill them in. But I don't know if we have any way of customizing any of that, so. Do you see what I mean? It's putting the priority as default phone number before anything else.
Right.
You do have to type in the phone number. You do have to copy and paste it a couple of times.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
it's
I don't
got
think there's a way
three-
to change it, but if there would, I would love it.
It's got 3 places for phone numbers before it even gets to the user settings, which is like, why?
And
Why?
the patron could still, through the pack side, tell us what sorts of notices they would like to receive.
Okay. Here's what I'm suggesting. I think maybe I'm a good one to test it. We always unclick phone because we don't use that. And so what I can try to do is go in and run a pull list and see if I can get phone to come up with that unclicked. But if a couple of other ones of you might want to run a couple of little tests and see, that might help us make a decision on whether, so Jennifer, my one question to you is, you're saying you want to keep it as a default, or do you want to, or would you be okay with having email as the default, but you could click into phone?
I guess what I'm saying is right now, having that phone clicked for us is sort of a safety net, right?
Okay.
I do think that we still have a lot of patrons that we call patrons. We don't have an automated system. We are calling them ourselves. So again, whatever the majority decides, we will work with, absolutely. For us, the phone works, but it just depends on what we all decide.
Okay,
And
if you, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. I was just going to ask if the transit slips could print the phone notice or could print the phone number, does that solve the issue, or does that just lead to the problem of now the slip always has the phone number on it and we're not sure what to do?
Yes. I don't know.
Fair.
Can I throw something out in there? I think I agree with Jennifer for us anyways, but I can't always speak for myself either. And we can go with the dorm, everybody else too. But the default number also has a PIN number for OPAC. And it automatically takes that last 4 digits of that phone number.
Well, that takes it actually pulls it from the number that's up ahead higher. It doesn't pull it it pulls from this phone number up here for your PIN number.
Yeah, but
not,
for
not
us,
the lower
more,
one.
okay, that makes sense. But that to us, that is the same number as the daytime number.
Sure.
And I agree that it's a safety net.
Okay. So let me say this. If you are on this call and you use automated phone messages or would like to keep this as a default, would you indicate that in chat? And then that I can kind of get, I have the feeling that most of the libraries are not doing automated hold messages, but we don't want to break the system for everybody. So
Can we go back to the idea that, how much of this form, this register patron form, do I have control over? Why do we all have to be the same? You know what I
There-
mean?
Yeah. I
mean-
did ask if this was customizable on the library level, and it's not. Some of the
Okay.
fields, I think, whether they are required or suggested or
Right.
show at all is customizable, but those settings are also, some of the settings you can say, do not show this field, and that field will still show.
exactly.
Mhm. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of room for improvement on this idea, this whole form, to be more applicable
Flexible.
to each of us. I don't know why it has to be universal. It doesn't make sense. It shouldn't matter. I don't see, except for the notices, maybe there's some connection there, but anyway. Okay, I'm gonna write my answer in the chat.
Okay, very good. Any other discussion on that? Okay, the last thing that I had that I wanted to go over today is just a reminder to not zip tie your courier bags. Get them closed, get them, but don't do the zip ties. And I think that is even listed in the courier, in Mala's, little, these are the steps to follow. So, don't use those courier, don't zip tie them shut. So, all right. Anything else that you would like to bring before the committee?
Okay, Rhonda, we have a couple questions here, Webster County.
Perfect, thank you. I'm glad somebody else can watch. I can't watch it and do this and do do you remember Meredith McCarthy when she would be doing like 4 things at the same time? Well, I'm just not that girl, so I'm glad you guys have my back.
Okay, most of it's about holds, I think. No, excuse me, we have some about holds. One is everyone, when you search for a patron before giving them a new card, does everybody, like if they have fines or lost items at another library, we will not give them a card. And we have run into where other libraries have given them a card when we have that patron who is missing books from us. You know what I'm saying?
We have the rule that that's how it's supposed to happen.
Yes.
But when your turnover is like a revolving door at the circ desk, I can see how it does get ignored.
Well, we have a backup, like, our front desk does the applications and they get put in a pile, and then I double check everything and I search for the patron without looking at any other information. If I find them, then we call them and we tell them that they can't use that card until they're set with the other library.
I used to do the same thing, but we stopped doing paper apps, so I didn't have to have the paper trail. So there's that. Oh, man.
I forget, I think it's in, I'm trying to remember which document it's in. I'm not sure if it's in CERC policy or I just don't remember. That if somebody comes into your library and they owe another library, it's suggested that you ask them to reconcile those fees before they get a new library card. However, the option is also in there that if the amount of fees they owe is lower than your fine threshold, that you could go ahead and choose to give them your library's card.
Yeah. Yeah, and that we do look at that. If it's $3, then it's usually something that's not lost.
Right.
Okay. I was just wondering.
I just ran into this yesterday with one of my patrons. I expired the card and I also put a note on there explaining that they have a card at another library and that the patron should call and talk to them. So that way I'm not having to call and talk to the patron, but the front staff who make the cards, I leave it up to them because I get a list every day emailed to us saying what cards were made the day before. So I can go in and check them.
Okay, so I mean, basically, we're trying to get things reconciled, if at all possible. But if it's a small amount that your library is, dollar amount that your library is comfortable with, it's okay to go ahead and make them a new library card for your library. Questions on that?
the one Erin is talking about owed us like over $100, and I think probably the next library probably doesn't want to get hit for the same amount of money, so.
Yeah, exactly.
And I have a question that came up. We're just full of questions for Webster County.
That's
On
okay.
the search, where you search for a patron. Under street, we have now started doing non-resident policy. So we have a street that one side of the street, you're in the service district, the other side of the street, you are not. And so we would like to be able to search street by, say, Pine, not a number. Does anybody know if these fields where it says street can be made searchable like keyword? Because right now you have to put like 74 Pine. You have to have the 74. It won't just search for Pine Street. Anybody have any ideas if that's something that is a setting?
I would have my guess would be that would
That's
be
an
an
equinox.
equinox question.
Okay.
Yeah.
If I contact them about that, has anybody run into any other fields on that page that you want to be searchable by keyword or?
Well, I think one thing on the address, especially, if you put road, so in Neosho, everybody uses abbreviations for types of roads, streets, avenues, lane, parkway, whatever. But if you don't put it correctly in that search, so it's Alley Cat Lane, and you put that, it won't find it if you put Alley Cat Road on the thing.
Yeah, or if you use LN or LANE.
Exactly.
Great if you could search for alley. And
Right, that would be better.
And that's
Yeah.
basically that's what I'm after. Or we have a branch library that has a street that straddles the library district, and they want to be able to find those.
Yeah, we have a similar situation too. So yeah, that is definitely something we ought to probably look at.
Okay.
I just always get aggravated and figure out another way and never thought about it being anybody else having the same problem.
Yeah. Even if they can't do it right now, it might be something that could be put on a wish list. And if enough people wished for it, then we could maybe get it bumped up the priority level.
And I have another wish list item that I want to know if anybody would love to have. As more and more libraries go fine free, we run into the issue that right now there is no setting that says if a patron has an item that is 10 days overdue or 15 days overdue, they cannot check out anything else until items are brought back. There's not a setting. In my last system, it blocked on items overdue for a certain amount of time. And right now we have to wait till it bills to get that block.
You
And if
can
those
set
are done-
those. You can set those settings with Equinox because I've set mine all to 21, whatever the days are. I can't think of it right now, but certain days.
Okay, now they told me I couldn't. They said
No,
that
I
could
have
do the
mine
bill.
printed out and I give it to everybody that works here. It shows what days it actually will block them from checking out.
Okay, and that's not because it's billed that day.
Right.
It's just a random day.
Yes.
Okay, now see, they told me that I had to go, it was my bill day that I could block on, not on a random day.
No, you can go 21, let's just say 21 days after, or 10, let's see, maybe it's 7 days after that last due date, I think is what mine is on that first, that'll
Okay.
block them.
Well, then I will contact them again because
And it's like, you've got to use the secret wording to help the guy. I mean, can you imagine, poor Dale, can you imagine them trying to understand me telling them something I wanted to try to do? And then you're all trying to do the same things.
Okay, I'll work on it. If not, I'll call you and say, where's
Okay.
that setting?
Okay.
There you go. Which, by the way, I don't know if you were at the users conference, wasn't it cool to actually meet Dale in person, this person that, you're on the phone with or emailing him?
That made my whole weekend. Yes.
It was excellent.
So great.
All right, anything else? All right, so I don't hear anything. Circ committee, look for some stuff for me this week. It probably, I've got my week is just crazy until Thursday night. And then so Friday I could maybe do it. It'll probably be, honestly, it'll probably be Monday before it gets to you. So look for that. Get in there and let's make edits. I'll try and do it maybe on a Google thing where we can edit and do some things like that. So look for that. Unless there's anything else, have a wonderful day and we'll see you next month.
Thanks, Rhonda, as always.
Bye.
Bye.